you've seen enough of the podcast, but I'm going to tell you anyways. I'm going to hit the button, play the jingle, introduce myself, introduce you, and then we'll get going.
What happens if you hit the button and the jingle and then the graphic plays and then I come back and I have like no shirt on?
That would be fun. You do that?
Just the most awkward podcast.
Oh my God. That would maybe the highlight of my life.
That would be the best.
Hi everybody, Poop Witch X here, and today on episode 12 of Coven Conversations, I have the honestly incredible human being that is sort of energy gigantic of the biggest magnitude. I have ChrisMak with me today. How are you? Welcome in.
Thanks for having me. This is so exciting. This is really so exciting.
I've been wanting to have a one-on-one talk with you since you came into my stream because you're one of those people who have really you could just tell, super fascinating. You have interest, you're a jack of all trades. You have interest in so many different categories of things. And you're one of those people I'm pretty sure we could talk for 3-4 days straight and still never run out of things to talk about because you're the poopin' best. And I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And now, first thing I want to ask you, because you do have one of those really incredible stories, is what would you categorize your career? You're a jack of all trades, but what would you call your career?
I am when people actually ask me, it's funny because I was just talking to my mom and she still doesn't know what to tell her friends. So I started in journalism and then I went into media and then I went into education and I was a teacher and then I went into marketing and business. But the whole line and radio, I was in radio for a while. The whole line throughout everything is I love content, much like you. I love content creation. I love telling stories. And I love telling stories that inspire people or connect people to do better in their lives or to become great. Because I was a kid who lived in a blue collar family that was supposed to just be working on oil rigs or whatever I was going to do. I'm in Alberta, so we have oil.
Canada, shout out.
In Canada. And I now run the Erika Legacy Foundation, which is all about inspiring people and helping them. And so I've had a weird history of work. And I've got to meet a bunch of cool people that people are amazed with, but every story is able to connect with people.
You know what I love about even just that sort of blanket of your life, essentially, is that so many people think that they just have to do one thing their whole life and that they can't pivot, they can't change. It's this is what you do. And especially even if you're in the age where you're in your late 30s, oh my gosh, people are you can't start a new career now. You can change and pivot and continue to adapt to, because you're one of those people who's good at a lot of different things. So you can use those assets for lots of different types of things, which is amazing. And I also love that you said you started blue collar. So so you obviously went to college. Did you go to college for journalism?
Here's how I'll give you the fast rundown of education. Number one is in grade 8, I got 23% in math because I was horrible at math.
Hate math. Trash.
At the time, I am in my 40s. I'm 44. At the time, my teacher was he should go into the remedial classes. And I got really mad about it. And I didn't believe that I should be because I was just lazy. It's not that I couldn't do math.
Yeah.
And
math
because
isn't
of
for
that,
everybody.
I went and I got my degree from university, 2 degrees from university, 1 degree from college, 1 certification from a radio school. And I think that's all I have. But throughout that all, it was the idea of that I believed that there is more out in the world than what you think there is. And it doesn't take a lot of courage to do it. You just have to believe in you.
Oh man. And you know what? I feel because you had this teacher who clearly, you said you were in the 3rd grade?
Yep. Eighth grade, bad math.
Yeah, and that, you know what's crazy about that is when teachers say those things, it makes such a lasting impression. And I think that teachers are enormously important to the foundation of your childhood and to your confidence and your skill set. And I'm someone who was also really bad at math, and I I wasn't just, I mean, it was a struggle. I had to take years of calculus and it was terrible. And I feel like it's so important that you don't like always listen to the naysayers and you believe in yourself and you instill in yourself confidence if other people won't do that. And it sounds like that's something that's really important in your life, like believing yourself if no one else does, or pushing through adversity. Is that sort of how you feel your story is?
Well, if you want to talk adversity, we'll talk about how I got to the Erika Legacy Foundation.
I would love to.
It will destroy you.
Please, well, you know, I'm a crier.
But there is a real big lesson, and it's what I tell people. It's how I get people to talk to me through the Erika Legacy Foundation, which is all about suicide prevention and mental health, which a lot of people now, because of COVID, everybody wants to talk about mental health, but it's still pretty hard. There's still a lot of stigma.
And a lot of, exactly, there's so much, it's one of those things that people are now, it's sort of the veil of it is being pulled away, but it's still, people still feel like if you say to somebody, you know, have you spoken to someone? Maybe you need to go talk to someone. They take it offensively a lot. Like, what are you trying to say? Like, I need to talk to somebody. So that stigma definitely needs to be lessened. But I would love to hear how you started your journey with the Erika Legacy Foundation and how you got to where you are now.
Well, this is going to be fun. And then we'll talk about mental health, and I'll give everybody in the chat a bunch of tips on mental health, and I got resources for everybody and anything.
Love that.
But 2010, let's go back. Let's go 2007, 08.
Wow. Okay.
I met Erika. And I was taking my education degree, and she was taking a random degree that then turned out to be education. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I've mentioned it. I was married to Erika.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, nobody. Usually I don't say that till now. So me and Erika got married, and we got married in 2008, and she started showing signs of mental health break around 2012. In 2012, she came home, and she's like, well, this marriage ain't working out. We had just built a new house.
Oh, wow.
Brand new house we just built about a year ago. And we divorced. And it was very friendly. Just so everybody knows, we were friends until her death. We were still amicable friends. But we divorced. I then met I already knew my now wife, Stephanie, who is fantastic. I've known Stephanie for 15 years.
I've heard a lot about Stephanie, yes.
There's a long story there. But between 2010 and 2018 to 2018 or 19, here's what happened. I got married. I lost my house. I got divorced. I lost my job. I then gained a new job. I lost half of my salary. Oh. Just on a whim, they cut my salary in half. Yes. My dad died from cancer. My grandfather died. Sorry. My aunt died by suicide.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
Erika passed away by suicide. I had 3 friends that died by suicide.
Oh my gosh.
And then the world went all crazy with COVID and everything else. And there's a bunch of other stuff that happened to me. I lost my house. I lost everything. I had to stay at my parents for a while, which was weird. And then once Erika passed away, her family came to me and said, we are thinking of doing a foundation for Erika, which is typical of most families who have kids or family members that pass by suicide. They want to start foundations. And I said, that's going to be great, but everybody does that. That's fine. And we came to the idea that if you were going to start a suicide foundation, we want it to be different than everyone else that's out there at the time and still now. We want it to come from science first, neuroscience first, which you know all about.
Yes.
And we want it to come from a neuro side and use neuroscience to fuel the programming that you build for kids and adults and everything else, and use that real scientific data to fuel the programming, the curriculum that people are taking. So we've done that, and we've done it very well. And it's been a really great success.
Well, first off, I just want to say that's a lot to endure for anybody. And I'm so taken aback about your resiliency and how you overcame so much loss and utilized that. You know, it's hard to say utilize grief because you don't ever want to say, you know, you're taking grief but sometimes taking something that feels almost unimaginable to overcome, and utilizing it for good like you've done, it almost, do you feel like it kind of lessens, like you're doing it in honor of the people that you've lost and are hoping to stop that from being a tragedy in someone else's life? So you're kind of, like using
and it's an
that.
honor to not, and here's for everybody in the chat, everybody that watches this on a VOD, or anybody that hears this in a podcast, when you go through stuff like that, my mentor, I had a mentor at the time, and I remember that he said, the best thing you can do right now is just stand up in the wind and keep on walking, because it's going to blow you over, but just keep going. But you do it to honor not only those people that passed, right? You want to honor those people, but do it for yourself. Don't let the world rip your core out.
Yeah.
Period.
Wow. Yeah, period. Yeah, no, there's really, and I think that that's really important, because I think sometimes when people are feeling, and especially through the pandemic, right? I mean, there's been so much loss, but I feel like you get hollowed out after when you deal with a lot of pain and suffering and loss, and you take scoops out of yourself sometimes, and you feel like, how will I ever fill this back in? And it, like you said, if you just keep going, your well will get filled in over time. And it's really important, like your mentor said, to keep walking in the wind, keep pushing through. And it's okay even if you get knocked down, just get back up, just keep going forward. And I think that that is incredible. And I want to touch upon how you are utilizing, you're looking at this through a scientific approach, which I think is really important. And I'd love for you to go more into detail about what steps you're taking to come at this huge and really a huge problem in our society, and how you're, trying to create tools for that.
Right. So let's not look at it as a huge umbrella. Mm-hmm. Let's look at it on the smaller things. That's how we start. We said we know it's huge. We know it's massive. It is massive. Yeah. So we said, let's start with the common factors that lead to, say, a suicide. Mm-hmm. Now, hopefully, suicide never happens. Right. And it is scientifically proven, and it has been tested and shown that there is the ability to have zero suicides in our population. I'm telling you that right now. That is a proven fact that we have shown through statistics and through numbers, but it needs more finance and more resources. So how do we do that? We look at things that lead up to suicide, like depression and anxiety. Currently, during COVID, I took about 1,600 calls. Last year, myself, I took them.
Holy moly.
The most common things, depression, anxiety, people not believing in themselves, imposter syndrome, where you think that you don't deserve to be in the life place that you are, or at school where you're supposed to be.
Right.
And a lot of confusion. Many people don't want to end their lives. They're just confused and scared. And it's like you get punched in the nose and you're bleeding and there's blood everywhere. And then I just ask you questions. And you're supposed to answer questions.
Wow. And it's while you're gushing blood, right? It's like,
right. And it's like you're going nuts and you don't know what to do.
Right. That's a really good analogy, actually. I think that's a really, really good analogy.
So with that, we looked at things like, what does serotonin do? What does dopamine do? And what does the research show? And the research shows, we have partnered with one of the leading researchers in suicide prevention that has she was the first woman to take actual brains, not just little slices of brains, but after people died by suicide,
this is post-mortem, guys.
Post-mortem brains.
Yes.
She was able to look at them and see where there was things lacking in the chemical structures of those brains. And she found that over the orbital cortex right here,
in the front,
there was a lack of serotonin and there was a lack of dopamine and other neurotransmitters, but those were the big two. Serotonin is things that make you happy. And you can have low serotonin, but that's your happiness in your life. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter for rewards, and it helps us to strive and it helps us to focus. And when you lack those things, if you don't have any drive, no focus, plus you lack happiness, it makes a very dangerous chemical imbalance in your brain that causes you to sink into such a deep depression that you can have a suicidal incident, which is either you're going to attempt or you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to deal with that and to recognize that. And it's not always meds. Meds are great, and I agree with meds. People
Yes.
should be on medication.
Yes.
Because, sometimes you have to have medication.
Absolutely.
I have wicked anxiety. I'm on medication. I also showed up with a shirt on today, so I'm happy.
Little victories, right? Little victories. Well, also, I want to talk about because when I was getting my neuroscience degree, one of the things we looked at was the brains under fMRI, which is like a functional magnetic resonance imaging. And the thing is that's really almost people don't realize is sort of scary is when you're looking at a human brain that is considered healthy, and I use that term lightly because there's obviously ranges of health for people, right? One person's normal is not another person's normal. However, people who are clinically depressed, which means they've been diagnosed by a psychiatrist with depression, their brains were almost black in certain areas that are where you have higher levels of serotonin and dopamine, oxytocin, all those warm, fuzzy neurotransmitters that make you feel happy and function, and they help you function. They really do. Their brain images were akin to somebody with like, it could almost be as someone elderly or someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, because they are so low. Those illnesses also cause drops in those neurotransmitters, but it's really it's people just think, oh, and it also, the colloquial, oh, I feel so depressed. There is a huge difference between going through a hard time and being really sad and what people are experiencing with clinical depression. And I completely agree with you. There should be no stigma for needing medicine. Medicine is incredibly important, and it makes people feel evened out. And it's essential for some people. And I do think pairing medicine with therapy is the best of both worlds, because you can work through things and traumas, and you can work on how to prevent those really downhill slides that some people can go through. Because obviously you can have swings in emotions too. So I love that you guys took a scientific approach. I think that's...
But there's a second part of that though.
Yeah.
And it can't just be scientific.
Yes, absolutely.
It has to be also recognizing triggers that are environmental.
Right.
Life things happen.
And that happens through therapy too, like where you can learn. Yeah.
Totally. And there's life things that happen that trigger people. And there's life things that'll drop your dopamine. When my dad passed away, it was a big deal. When my grandpa passed away, it was a big deal.
Absolutely.
But we also have to recognize the yin and yang of environmental and chemical. Right. And most people only stick to one side. They only want to do therapy. They only want to know about the therapy, and I feel great, you feel great, we hug each other.
Right.
But they don't want to learn about what's actually happening inside their brain. But if you can learn both, and you can, at a simple level, knowing those environmental factors are major to knowing about your own body.
Right. And I also think it's sort of like akin to a tool chest, right? A screwdriver is good for screw driving, and a hammer is good for hammering. And you need both to be able to, essentially put together certain things, put together your soul, if you will, your brain, your body, your spirit. They all have to be together in unison, and you have to have different tools for different things. So I completely agree with the yin yang, and that you need both, and learning yourself and talking about triggers. When people say like, oh, that triggers me, I think you mean it in like trauma triggers and things that are emotionally triggering that could happen in the day-to-day life. Like, for instance, when you have experienced loss of something and you see something that reminds you of that person or that loss, you could be hit with all the emotions of grief from 20 years ago sometimes by just seeing or smelling something. Those things are environmental triggers. So do you also kind of feel like it's that duality of needing medicine, you need therapy, but we also the scientific approach that makes the Erika Legacy Foundation so unique?
Yes. And I think it's also the idea that we embrace emerging technologies. Mm-hmm. Currently, one of the campaigns that I'm funding for is we actually want to build a proper mental health app and life optimization app that is able to help you with a lot of the trigger parts. But I have an AI, I have an artificial intelligence system that is a partner with us. And currently, all they need is a distribution channel, which is an app or a program for this artificial intelligence. They have written many white papers. They have gotten into many medical research journals. Their AI has been shown and proven to spot if a person is going to have a mental health incident 6 months before it happens at 14 times faster than we can currently diagnose them now by them going to the doctor all the time. And it's done by just surface level skimming a person's living life data. So what you post on Facebook, what you post on Instagram, how you interact with your phone. And it has been a proven technology and AI that has worked wonders with veterans in the US. So we're going to use things like that. People don't talk about all these cool technologies. And it's one of the reasons I'm here in this chat, in this stream. You have no clue the magic you have, Poop.
Oh, stop it. You're going to make me cry. Don't do this to me yet, okay?
Like, and I've told you the story. I was like going through McDonald's because I was hungry last year. And I stumbled because I was on Twitch for a couple of weeks before. And because I wanted to know what Twitch was. But there is a magic about using this platform to create communities so that those environmental factors in people's real lives around the world aren't as heavily hit.
Yeah.
Because they can come here, and in our community here, the Coven, you can come here and you can talk and you can get help. And there's I don't think a lot of mental health providers or people in the mental health world understand how much technology like this could be game changer.
Game changer. Well, that's what I was going to say, is that I feel like technology, listen, there's beauty in it, and then there's things that aren't so beautiful about technology. But our society is not going to go backwards. We are only going to go technologically forwards. And how does that become applicable to mental health? How can we use mental health? How can we use technology to help? And what I think is really important about what you're doing is that it's preventative too. You aren't just helping people in the immediacy of a crisis, which you do that as well. So I don't want to, that's still incredibly important. People have immediacy, they need help. But your company is looking to help prevent future instances or attempts. And I also kind of think if you have, you deal with also a younger audience in your foundation, where you deal with adolescents and teens and tweens and young adults. And I think they use technology more than, every generation is going to use technology more and more in their lives. So, if you have a parent of a child who is possibly, mentally unstable or unwell, and they could use your software to, and I'm not saying, you don't ever want to be invasive and things, but to prevent your child from doing something permanent and devastating by just monitoring, like what you said, like monitoring what they're looking at, what they're Googling, things like that of that nature, to make sure they're not going to do anything. And to have that, oh my gosh, it seems like your software will tell them like, oh, something's happening, right? And like this needs to be monitored. And then the parents of that child or the vet, like we can intervene before. And I think that's really important.
The whole thing. The Erika Legacy does 3 things. We're proactive, we're predictive, and we're preventative. Yeah. If something falls within those 3 things, right now I have a proactive youth program, as you know, which is right here. So good. The well-being, I have a book with it.
I have that book.
And I have this book digitally, which will be after this podcast. We'll put it up in the links.
Yes.
And we'll put it on the Discord.
Yes.
But it goes out to 100,000 teachers right now. That's over 2 million youth in their classrooms taking it. And
that's amazing.
That's what we fund right now. That is what we fund. We fund as much money as we can to this program. Now we want to add the app so that these kids can then take it in school, take the app, go home, show their parents, and you get a full circle of people learning and becoming more caring communities.
Yeah. And I think that's really, honestly, the most important thing. And I think as society, as we grow, we should become more empathetic to one another, and there should be more full circle care. It's not just, there's this antiquated sort of like, how's your day, kid, sweetheart, or whatever. Oh yeah, my day was good. And then they go in their room and you don't hear anything. And that feeling of, a teen is angsty and their hormones, just leave them alone. That's not always the right move. I understand giving your child privacy and giving your child distance when they need it, but for some people, you need to be able to assist more than that and be more hands-on. And I love that your foundation works so heavily in trying to be an outreach for people and to be a place that's fully rounded. I feel like it's a fully fleshed out foundation, which you don't see very often. You're focusing on like everything, which is amazing.
Most people, if you ask them, because they all wear Apple Watches, they all wear wearables. My Ring is a wearable. It tracks my sleep. People want privacy, but they will give up a little bit of privacy to have more transparency and honesty. And that's what we want to do with our app. We want to have it where we're not selling any of your information, and it's very, very transparent. You can say yes or no to each piece of the app. And
do you think that this would be something that the child, I think like one of the questions would be like, would the child be aware that the software is involved or not?
Oh yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask you. I feel like it should be, they should be aware. It shouldn't be done, right? Do you feel the same way?
I feel that they should be aware of what is being asked of them, what is being wanted to see of them. But I also figure that not only children, adults, everybody, you should also have a say in what's happening and how things develop. One of the problems is currently any social media site, such as the Facebook and such, you don't actually have a say anymore on how it's being developed.
Yeah.
And we want to do that with our app. We want to make it a very safe space.
Yes. So you want it to be interactive, where the people utilizing it also have the ability to really make it for them, like personalize it for their needs and what their family's needs are or what their child's needs are. And I do believe that, especially when you're dealing with teenagers and I think transparency is always probably the best course of action when you're dealing with really anyone. Being transparent is really important. I understand certain things, maybe, but I think especially when you're dealing with mental health, you don't want things to be done in the dark, like behind the scene. You want people to know what's happening to them on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's really important.
If you're not, you lose time. And one of the issues is, if you think about it in Canada, or the States, think of a rural community. They are 4 to 6 hours away from a hospital. We have to, by being honest and open, we have to be able to give them services digitally so that it can break that time and space and they can get help when they need.
You're talking about more for crises, like immediate.
If there's a crisis, and even if there's not, or if you know somebody. So our app looks at 6 things. The 6 most common things, and they are the most common things that are seen with people who have mental health issues. Either you're depressed or you're anxious. So it's body, brain, bond, budget, education, and legacy. And we help you work on each 6 of those things to bring you closer to people, to bring you closer to your family, because you should never have to ask a person, are you suicidal? Because if you do that, usually they get their back up and they get a little bit annoyed. You should be able to work together and help each other so that you don't get to that point ever.
Right. That's the end. That's the end result. You want to start all the way at chapter 1 and start working from chapter 1, and you don't even want to have to get to chapter Z. You don't want to have to get back there. But so just because you said all the basically like the 6 pillars of your like what would bond be? You're talking about like familial bonds and friendship bonds.
Familial bond and community bond, because a lot of families have to work on that bond, but you'll also find that there is a bond in your environmental communities, which is places like here.
Right.
So, I trust this group with anything.
You're gonna make me cry. No, but that's what I was gonna talk about, because we often say in this stream is that family isn't always blood. You can choose your family, and sometimes, unfortunately, and Chris, you probably know this way more than I do, But sometimes the family, your father, your mother, your brother, your uncle, whoever, that could be the person who's triggering for you. That could be the person who's abusing you. That could be the person that you are not safe with and that you are fearful of, and that is maybe causing you to have mental episodes of, because listen, people are parents that are just people, and everyone has issues and everyone has flaws, and there are not good parents and they're not good people and they're not good family. So we really try to strive, and this, is that you can choose your family too. It can be people, it can be a community of people from all around the world that you, like you said, that you trust implicitly and that you are there for each other and you support each other. So I love that you include the not just, because there's so much emphasis on like families, but also talking about families, sometimes, your families don't want to like listen to mental health things.
Or they're scared.
Right. Or there's like a lack of education involved with it, which is another huge thing. And like you said, in rural communities, I feel like mental health is really taboo in mental health. It's always like, buck up, you're fine, boys don't cry. There's all these like really horrible mentalities that we need to get rid of. And I think having something accessible, like that you could just download at the App Store and have it be something that helps you. That's not, like you said, going, so many people think of like going to a psychiatrist and you lay down on the couch and it's so not how it is. And I think it's really important that there's something that's like a touchstone, a technological touchstone for people.
There should be the ability to have a technological touchstone.
Yeah.
There should be an ability to have give people on their phone, in their own privacy, pattern interruption. And a pattern interrupt is where you do something that changes your thought pattern. So that you're not in the same place you were 2 minutes ago. Because sometimes, and we say it, I'm sure everybody's heard it, don't end your life because you're having one bad day.
Yes. And I've actually, I've talked about this, but, I've had people who have reached out to me, and I am not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. Obviously, I have some medical background, but I'm really just people's friends, right? And I've had people, and I've spoken to you about this, Chris, who have reached out to me privately when they are in a crisis situation. And I've had to, calm them down. At one time I spoke with them for 3 hours straight until that they were okay and they were breathing. And I always say, you don't ever make a permanent decision off of temporary emotions, because most of the time, once you get your mind straight, you take some deep breaths, you calm yourself down, and you can have clarity of thought, you would have never wanted to do something like that. And it's those instances, if you could catch someone before they get to that place like you're trying to do, how many people could we save? How many people? I mean, have you seen that documentary about the people who've jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge? So all of them regret it. They all regretted it. And they all said that they would never have done it if they had known. Like halfway as they're falling, they're like, why did I do this? Because they have this terrible moment and they decide to do a permanent thing. And all of a sudden they're like, what the F did I just do?
Right. And many people that lived through a suicide attempt, many people, and I'm talking many people that aren't totally medically depressed, that are heavily medically, because there's a difference between mental health issues, heavy medical, and what people are just feeling in the moment. And it's that environmental and stuff like that.
Right.
But many people realize after the fact that that wasn't the smartest thing they've done all day, and they didn't want to do it at the end because there's much more to life.
Yes. And I think that, would you say that also, like in your foundation, and also just you being who you are, which is just such a warm and wonderful and charismatic person, do you feel like also with people like you and with communities like this, that there can be real change? Because some people get really discouraged. Like, it's just, I don't feel like anything's ever going to change. I want you to, I feel like you're so inspiring, and I tell the people that there will be change. Here's the thing. Scientific research moves very slowly. Yeah.
Human inspiration changes the world, and it can change fast. And it's why I come still to the Poop Coven all the time. It's why I'm on Twitch on a bunch of channels. Because there is a lot of power in people that are inspired and people that help out each other. And it's shown because out of 1,600 calls last year, everybody I talked to has made it. and they're doing better, and everybody's doing better at different levels, obviously, but they're all doing well, and well, you know what? They're still living. But it comes from the idea of the power of storytelling, and it's one of the things I love about the Coven. There's the power of role play. Props to Mr. Rickman. But sharing each other's stories and talking about it really helps out, especially if you can put it in a framework where people are interested and engaged. Being highly engaged in something really gets people excited. And just hearing statistics doesn't really always get you so excited.
Right.
But if I can tell you that I went through it and you can too, and I'll help anybody. Anybody that's hearing this, anybody that's seeing this, anybody that's in this chat right now, come to the erikalegacy.com. Erika, Erika. I will be there.
And you know what I honestly love about everything you just said is that they're really, it's a very rare thing to find people. You know what? Screw that. I take it back. I don't want it to be a rare thing to find people like you in this world that is doing so good. Or Mr. Rickman, who is using gaming and he's became a therapeutic game master to utilize gaming to help people, and people like you who are trying to be preventative and help people in before a crisis occurs. And I find it so inspiring that you overcame so much adversity and you just stumbled upon this community, and I've somehow gotten to be your friend because of all of this. And it's amazing, and it's powerful, and it's moving, and it really is like a phenomenal thing to witness. And I do believe that things will get better. And I do believe that people like you do exist. And I think that there's this like notion that you're a burden or that you're alone a lot of the time. And what you just said is you've stumbled upon us, and now you would, trust all of us implicitly. And you've even said you've sent people here, and of the 1,600 calls, everyone is still living and here today. And that's a win. And I think that is incredible. It really is. It's moving and it's incredible. And I'm just so honored that you wanted to be here and to talk to me and to share this with us. And I'm so excited about everything that you're doing. It's incredible. It really is. It's pretty powerful stuff. Yeah. In
this chat, for anybody out there or people that I can see, I'm looking. So to all the raiders that just rated us, hello, because we're on Twitch.
We're in a podcast. Hello, raiders.
But we're on Twitch, so come see us on Twitch. This is great. Because I know it's also a podcast. But to anybody, I know out there right now in our chat, there's people you know. There's people you know, or it's you that has anxiety right now.
Yes.
Or depression, or you feel imposter syndrome where you feel like you shouldn't belong.
You're talking all the streamers. Basically. All streamers have imposter syndrome.
Basically.
All my friends. Yeah.
But I'm telling everybody here, personally, I will help you. But Erika Legacy has resources that'll help you, and it'll give you tips and tricks on how to calm anxiety, like things like drinking a soda can help you calm anxiety because it distracts your brain with your sense of taste and touch. And it gives you that moment to refocus.
Can I tell you that I've squirted lemon juice in my mouth when I've been on the verge? Yeah, because we both have anxiety disorder. And I'm telling you, that is one of my favorite tricks, that when I'm on the verge of having an anxiety attack, which to me, do you classify panic attacks different from anxiety attacks? Because I do.
Panic attacks are different, yes.
Yes, okay.
Because they come and they go.
Yes.
Anxiety attacks can stay.
Slow rumble, yes, yeah.
Right? It's the low rumble.
Low rumble.
Totally low rumble.
It's low. And that's how I kind of feel about anxiety in general. I feel like anxiety is this pulse that lives in the background, and the pulse can go higher, the pulse can go lower, but it's always there. It's always in the background for the most part, but sometimes it pushes into the foreground. And when it comes into the foreground, anxiety attacks are, and I feel like people with anxiety understand there is a huge difference between panic attacks. Panic attacks are like a summer storm. They come out of nowhere, they're fast, but then they just dissipate. And then a friggin' anxiety attack is like a 3-week long blizzard. It's just like, it just buries you. It's long, it's arduous, it's painful, totally different. But that is such a good tip. Yes, soda, but I squirt lemon juice. That will shake you out of, you're like, whoa, never, like sensory things.
If you're having a panic attack, get a bowl of cold water with ice, put your face in it for 2 seconds.
My mom has made me do that. Oh my God. You're like saying all my tricks, Chris. Like, come on. My mom always will say to pour cold water on my wrists and on the back of my neck, because those are your sweet spots of like, it controls your temperature. But it's so interesting how with mental health, you can have sensory things going on at the same time. So if you can learn, that's what we were talking about with like the tools. If you can learn to have different tools in your toolbox and have an arsenal at your side, then things that are really scary and really daunting and you feel like you can't overcome, you can. Because if you're trying to fight Goliath with a toothpick and that's all you got, it's going to feel like you are not going to be able to mess up Goliath. But if you have an army and you have lots and you have a long sword and a bow and arrow and you have a fire gun, what are those called again? Flamethrowers, if you fire gun. If you have an arsenal at your disposal, then Goliath doesn't seem so formidable anymore. And that's how I look at my mental health, So
and it becomes less formidable when you have friends.
Yeah.
Which leads me to this. This is something that I did last year.
Okay.
25,000 of these cards went out to families and friends and kids. And I offer this to anybody here. Email Erika Legacy. Go to my website, email me at Erika Legacy. By the way, Erika Legacy also has a find help section, which will show you help in any state, any province, any city. You can find help immediately. It's something that we specialize in, is finding people help fast. But here's what I built. 25,000 of these went out. They are Live to Inspire cards. And the idea was that I would give these to you. I'd give you a couple cards and you would physically write, because that snaps you out as well, physically writing. Write a note to somebody who inspired you or somebody that needs some inspiration. Tell them why you love them. And that helps more than anything.
Just like a little word, sometimes little small words of encouragement can just... it changed. Like I find it always interesting that like a community member will message me and I'll message them back and be like, you have no idea how this meant to me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I love your face. Like, what are you talking about? Like, message me anytime you want. Like, I'm here for you, So it's amazing how you think such small little acts of kindness can go such a far way. And I wanted to bring up, how do you feel about like any tips for social anxiety? Because that's something that a lot of people go through. And I know Twitch is a great place for working on social anxiety, because you could do it in a safe space with like a barrier. But like, how would you attack social anxiety?
So, okay. I was super shy as a kid. Now, not so much. Now, Stephanie upstairs probably is like a little chatty. Anyway, So how I deal with social anxiety is I tell people that it is okay to have social anxiety. It's okay to have the jitters and the fear. But recognize it, realize what it is, but then also realize that most likely, I am 44 years old. I have seen some things and been some places. Most people aren't against you. Most people want to be with you. Most people will connect with you. Most people want to hear your story. I have talked to many chatters in our Coven and on the chat right now privately, because I want to hear their stories. There's some cool stories.
Yes.
And although it's scary, and it is scary, social anxiety is a killer. It's so hard. Sometimes just try dipping your toe once in a while and just realizing that you don't have to see these people ever again if you don't want to, but you will find that if you do, and you can calm it just for that brief second, most people want to build you up rather than take you down.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, that also just that small dip that you said, just try once, put your toe in the water. Every time you do it, your body will acclimate to the cold water and it won't be so cold the next time. And the next time you do it, it'll be a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And I think that is such a good and important point, is take the little dips where you see fit with people you feel moderately comfortable with, and go from there. And also, as somebody who, I don't have social anxiety, but I have anxiety disorder, my anxiety manifests in different ways. But if you find somebody who you find like a little extroverted poop goblin like me, we will also be your conduit. If you find somebody, you're like, hey, that person seems like a safe person. Maybe I could go just say hi to them. Find someone whose energy you feel vibes with you and utilize that as your first dip. Like people are so perceptive of energies, and you can feel it when you walk into a room, you gravitate towards certain people. So with social anxiety, take a little dip, see someone you feel comfortable with, and just try. And the worst that happens is maybe it doesn't go over well, but then you try again, and you can keep trying. And that is super, super, super important. And I love that you asked that. Thank you so much. Okay. And then we had another question. I wanted to make sure, we have to remove the stigmatism of seeking professional help. So Chris, when you're in your professional setting and you have somebody who is going through a hard time, and you have a feeling that's saying, I think you should seek professional help. And how would you phrase that to maybe make it a little less, because some people could take that offensively. How do you approach that kind of conversation?
I think that if you can share stories with each other and connect at a real level, it takes a little bit of time, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time.
Right.
And I have actually been the guy who people call out of the blue, obviously, because I run this foundation. People call me out of the blue, and I have gotten them to therapy when they don't want to get therapy. And the whole point of therapy is not, here's what I always tell them. I always say, currently, it's like you're looking through a camera lens, and you all have cameras because we're all twitched now. And maybe, just maybe you are fully correct in all of your beliefs. But maybe, just maybe, your lens is out of focus by
like mine always is.
1 inch.
Yeah.
And it's that little inch that you don't notice because it looks so normal to you. And I say to them that therapy is not bad. And all you have to do is try it once to see. But you have to, what I would say about therapy is go in knowing what you kind of want to figure out so that you can lay down a set of guidelines with a therapist on what you actually care about. Because what usually happens with therapy for a lot of people is they kind of know, but they don't want to say what they want to do or what they feel like they should get help with. So it takes a lot of time to get there. And that span of time going to see a therapist really annoys them, and it scares them.
Yeah. Because I think some people don't want the time investment too, you know?
Right.
Like
and that's the thing. I would say that it's not as scary as most people think, but you have to be eased into it and make sure that you have somebody privately that will be your champion.
Yeah. And also, can I also just say, again, because people are wonderful, but there's, not every therapist works for every person. So you might have to try different therapies and different style therapists and to find the right fit, because I know from firsthand experience, I went to a therapist when I was actually very, very young. I went to a child psychiatrist, and I went to one who scared the bejesus out of me. And then my mom took me to another one, and I literally to this day remember her. I remember her office. I remember everything so vividly. She helped me so much. I was in the 4th grade, and I remember so much of my experience with her. She was so wonderful. I wish she helped adults, but but she was wonderful. And I think sometimes you have to try, but therapy should never be looked at as like a one fits all. It works for my friends, will work for, it's not. It's just like how diets. Some diets work for somebody, and someone else will try a diet and it doesn't work. You have to find the right fit for your mental health, for your body, like your soul, your spirit, because going to therapy and just talking it out can be so cathartic. And also, meditation is another one that's really, I think a lot of people find meditation to be pretty helpful. Do you utilize that kind of thing or suggest those kind of things? Tell me.
Let me tell you.
I want to hear
when I got divorced.
Yes.
Let me tell you that. So I get divorced, and I'm standing in my house, new house. It's like a bomb went off in my ears because Erika had just been like, "I'm leaving," and I was, "Oh, okay, that's something happening." I went to therapy for about 2 months, and that's all I needed. But it didn't stop a lot of things. So what I turned to was mindfulness, activities of mindfulness. By the way, there's resources that we're going to send a link to. I have 300 mindfulness activities that people can use
Jesus Christ.
for all different circumstances in the digital library that I sent to everybody.
Yes.
And that will be up later.
Yes.
And we will post it on the Discord so people will after this.
I have to work with you on making a whole section in the Discord for all this stuff.
I found mindfulness, I found health, because sometimes it's not therapy for a person. Sometimes I can't talk to a person because I don't want to, because I just think it's stupid. Straight up. I just think talking to you is stupid. Who are you? Maybe you had a divorce and you're telling me about. So mindfulness, exercise. I did exercise. Some people, whoever it is, and I was one of them. Some people find faith to be very soothing. Love religion, hate religion. If people find it soothing for their soul. Whatever you can do
that works for you.
Absolutely. You should do.
And also going back to, if you don't know what your biggest problem is and you want to approach therapy, that's okay too. A good therapist is going to help find the root of the problem through conversation, through maybe some different like little activities. They will find and help with you. It just might be your journey is a little bit longer if you don't know exactly what you want to focus on. But that doesn't mean that the journey's not worth going on. Like it just means that yours might take a little bit longer. But honestly, this whole world, and I'm really not being facetious at all here, this whole world would benefit from everyone going to therapy. Everyone talking to an unbiased person. And then therapists going to other therapists. Like everyone should just talk to someone who is unbiased, non-judgmental, where you can just pour your heart and soul in to a person that just listens. Because so often people just need to be listened to. And like you said, have their stories heard. And by giving people the ability to speak their truth, talk about their stories, or work through trauma, how many lives could be saved? And this goes for this is beyond just suicide. This is people who hurt other people as well. Mental health is something that it's if you have a brain in your skull, you have some variation of a mental health. Either you feel like you're healthy, or you have anxiety, or any gambit of mental disorders. It doesn't matter. Talking to someone who just is unbiased, who is going to listen to you, is so cathartic. And we'd all benefit from it, really.
I realize there's only two healths. You only have two healths. Legit. Yeah. You have mental or physical. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. And sometimes when I get a little existential though, Chris, I get a little existential because I think about it like, we're all in these bodies, right? And our spirits, or if you believe in spirits, or our souls, if you believe in soul, and your consciousness, they're all in this you're in this human experience right now. And you, in a way, have control over how you want that. To an extent, obviously, like you said, there's environmental factors that are out of your control. But in a lot of ways, you can decide, I'm going to sit and meditate for 5 minutes before work.
Yep.
I'm gonna wake up 5 minutes earlier to sit in my bathroom. I don't know what it is with me in bathrooms, man. I'm always like chilling in the bathroom. But the bathroom is my safe space. But if it's not yours, if you go sit in your car, I don't know if there's any other people who like to sit in their car for 5 minutes in the quiet. But there are so many little tiny things you can do to adjust yourself in the day. And you are your biggest priority, That was sort of sad.
but don't be afraid to meditate with ice cream.
Yeah. Yes. Small little joys are so amazing, because enough small little joyful things can amount to having a lot of joy in your life. If you do one small act of kindness for yourself every day, what will your week look like? What would your month look like if you did one good thing every day for yourself?
And things like therapy are hard. They're very hard. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you, I'm going to look straight into this camera because it's everybody that I talk to. Mm-hmm. Therapy is hard. Working on yourself is hard. Mm-hmm. But you're hard. You can do it.
Yes.
You are worth it.
Yes, you are. And a lot of people will be like, I don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden. That whole idea that because you are experiencing something, that you're going through something, that you are a burden to anybody is not true. And it's your own mind working against your best interests. And that's honestly sort of sometimes how I think of my anxiety. It's like a monster that's working against me. and I take it and I externalize it so that it's no longer a part of me. It's like, okay, this anxious thought bubble, this intrusive thought I'm having, they're not like, I don't get mad at myself anymore. Cause now I'm like, okay, my anxiety, I named her, and you know, she's a BITCH, and I named her, and she is now not, I take responsibility, but at the same time I also go, okay, but it's not my fault I feel this way right now. It's okay. I will get through it. I will work through it in the whatever way I need to work through it at that time. But everyone has to approach it differently. And I think that's really, and yes, we can do hard things, and it's hard. And what you do is so incredible, Chris. I mean, the Erika Legacy Foundation is doing so much good. You do so much good. You're incredible. I knew from the first day I talked to you, I was like, oh my gosh, Chris is a living legend. Like, holy smokes, where did this person come from, Canadia? But seriously, like, you're incredible. And when you started to share with me about this foundation that focuses on, you know, prevention of suicide and mental health awareness, and also dealing with young adults and adolescents and tweens and veterans, and how you're taking a scientific approach, you're creating an entire app and software to help prevent a crisis months before it can occur. That is incredible and noble, and it's all stemming from this person who's overcome so much loss in your own life. And I'm just so honored that you shared this with us. And it's incredible. It really is. It's incredible. And thank you.
Well, thank you. So before we go, I will say that it was, yes, I've had a lot of loss, and everybody has a lot of loss. There's a lot of loss out there, and people get punched a lot and kicked a lot, and you get knocked down, and we all get up. As I like to say, if you fall down, fall on your back, because if you look up, you can get up.
But I like that. If you look up, Erika, you can get up. Yeah.
Was totally strong, and she was somebody you wouldn't expect to be suicidal if you think of how our societies think of suicidal people. So I will say, though, I do realize that most people don't die by suicide, but there are more people with anxiety and depression. And if you're one of those people right now looking at this, and it's COVID, and you're stuck, or you're hurting, or you know somebody that's hurting, or you're scared, come to my website, erikalegacy.com. I will help you. Our people will help you. Wherever you are in the world, you have friends, people care about you. You have communities like this on Twitch. Come into this community. Come to my website. We'll get you help. It's not as scary as you think.
Well, I think that is a beautiful and a wonderful way to end this segment. Chris, I am so honored. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we have resources in the chat, but we will also be posting resources in the Discord. And Chris is going to share a bunch of more resources from his foundation with everybody. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us and shedding a light on a hard topic that, honestly, this needs to be addressed regularly. This needs to be an open forum conversation, and I am so glad to be a part of this conversation with you. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today. I'm so inspired. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
The next chat we do, it'll be way more uplifting, I promise. We'll talk about
I want to know about all your stuff in your office.
We'll talk about the cool life.
Yes, I want to see all your cool things, and we'll have to do another episode where it's more.
Break out some Buffy props.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Oh, don't talk to me about Buffy props. Okay, so everybody, this was Coven Conversations, episode 12, with the incredible ChrisMak from the Erika Legacy Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And until next time, thank you so much, Chris. I am so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.